Welcome back to The Junkyard, a series dedicated to rebuilding your favorite fictional mecha in mobile engagement chassis Steel Hearts. We're aiming right for the top with the fan favorite, Gunbuster. Gunbuster is a mech from the OVA aimed for the top, Gunbuster, and I guess Diebuster too for a little bit. As a combination of Buster Machines 1 and 2, it's a super weapon designed to fight gravity distortion wells. Basically, space monsters that can manipulate gravity and are trying to rid the universe of the virus that is humanity. Gunbuster is spec'd out to deal with cosmic horrors, capable of fighting even whilst moving at light speed, and armed with enough weapons to wipe out entire armies on its own. We've got a bunch of design goals, as usual, to try and match the tone and abilities of the original, but we've got a few things to get out of the way immediately. Gunbuster is, very big and seriously overwhelming. It's on a totally different scale to your average mech, not just in Steel Hearts, but anywhere, standing over 200 meters tall. It could use a football stadium as a bathtub. It towers over skyscrapers. You could fit your entire party inside it and still have room to spare. Distance and scale in Steel Hearts is pretty abstract, so on a big enough battlefield you could fudge the numbers with Super Robot Wars logic, but anything that's a reasonable size will have it sticking out. Especially since while exact distance doesn't matter much, things being larger or smaller than you does. If I were to put this into a campaign, it would likely need a homebrew system or some narrative reason why you're on the same playing field as this monstrosity that shoots nukes like frickin' Vulcans. Maybe your whole squad gets galactic versions of your mechs that are on the same scale. Alternatively, maybe Buster Machines are just smaller here. Disnuff is about 50 meters tall, and that's a Buster Machine, and there's even smaller ones too. In my head, anywhere between 30 to 50 meters is what I'll be thinking of, with an eventual upgrade near the campaign's end to its full size. Anyway, our design goals are as follows. We need to be incredibly resistant to any kind of damage. We're huge after all. Finding some way to simulate the larger size would be great too. We also need a way to react to incoming damage no matter how fast it is. Gunbuster fights monsters that move at light speed, so interventions and at least some kind of movement boost simulates that, even if we can't move at that speed ourselves thanks to the limits of Earth's atmosphere. We've also got to have a bunch of AoE attacks. Gunbuster is meant to fight in an intergalactic war and needs the weaponry to do it. Finally, we've got to channel our inner Kamen Rider and have a Super Inazuma kick. Our rules are as follows. 1. Restart with all 6 parts, degeneracy generator primed and ready to kick some ass. 2. All parts from the mechanic shop are allowed, with the exception of fabled parts, as usual. This thing might be cosmic in scale, but somehow this is purely man-made. And 3. 150,000 credit limits for upgrades. We need a bunch of crap to get this thing looking right, so we're borrowing bits from the Naito 2, Fighter 1, Diver 3, and Rancher 3. First up, we need to hit hard, so we're grabbing the option part first. We're taking a reflavored bow staff. Its basic attack does shock damage all around us, and its stratagems crank it up to direct damage. These terrifying tools are, of course, the Buster Colliders. Next, we're taking the Spirit Booster's helmet part. This buffs up our armor and lets us fly up to 3 spaces. This is a spaceship after all, so having flight is only natural, but it's also freaking massive and not great at flying inside an atmosphere. It also lets us use the full power of our degeneracy generator and fire a Buster Beam via the Spirit Crash stratagem, sweeping away a whole bunch of enemies in one go. Finally, we're taking the Anchored Heels maneuver part. This gives us +3 speed and +2 armor, and has the passive effect of negating 2 push or pull. Creatures or mechs larger than you negate push or pull depending on how many sizes bigger than you they are. At 50 plus meters, the Gunbuster is over 3 times as big as the average mech, so this takes that flavor and makes it a mechanical effect. When it comes to similarly big worms though, I don't know, you're just built different. The thing we really want from here though, is the Gunbuster's signature attack, the Inazuma kick. The anchored drop kick is exactly that, an epic drop kick that applies stuck, knocking over and trapping whoever gets hit with it. Get a running start for the best results. These are the essential kit of Gunbuster, and can be piloted solo with no problem. Of course, the Gunbuster is a 2-person mech, so let's see what gets unlocked once both pilots are in the seat. We're simply not strong enough as we are now, so we're taking the tournament core. This doesn't give us some hidden stratagem or anything, but instead gives us plus 10 to our armor. It also bumps up any stat by 1, which we're obviously putting into our torque. The Gunbuster survived the trip into Jupiter's core and then detonated in a weird time-space distortion bomb or whatever. The sheer gravity and the bomb itself did such disgusting things to the space around it that they could only escape thousands of years later relative to Earth time. And it was still functional somehow. So like, yeah, Gunbuster gets plus 10 armor. Jeez, even Gal Geiger is sweating here a little. Next, some of our parts are going to be playing triple duty to amount for this thing being an army by itself. So we'll go to our Swiss Army knife, the Dynamite Fist. It adds plus 1 to our torque, and its basic attack is just Gunbuster's explosive power, probably the Buster Tomahawk, finally getting some screen time. Its Nitro Blast stratagem lets us soak the battlefield's AoE explosives via Buster missiles, or pick one target to shred via Buster Home Run. Finally, our other arm will be the Maxim Gloves. It also has a Blaze basic attack for when you just gotta punch someone out. More importantly, every time we use it, we can channel our second Degeneracy Generator to give ourselves plus 1 synergy. For stratagems, Fighting Spirit lets us feel Coach's blazing heart beating within it, boosting our shields and synergy. At the speed of light, we can also block incoming attacks with Reflecting Punch, either catching outright or blocking it with our Buster Shield. If you're getting overwhelmed by all the enemies, you can just delete them. Storm of Fists and Burning Red do blaze damage in a huge 5x5 area. Our fantastic homing laser. Our parts are picked out and they are devastating in a wide area. Now we just gotta tune this thing to get it under control with some upgrades. You already know, but our torque is getting ratcheted way up with 5 upgrades, activating kinetic regen to give us extra synergy the more damage we deal. We're getting 2 durability upgrades to activate Grunt Frame and Heavy Duty. We're gonna be taking a lot of hits out there. Finally, we're reinforcing our armor even more, getting our armor up to a juicy 39 total, the most armor we've had in this series so far. Now we gotta go over our stratagems and see what these actually do. We're starting with a Spirit Crash. This is gonna be our Buster Beam equivalent. Instead of having a die roll attached to it, this is instead a finishing move, dealing damage equal to your synergy times 2 and emptying it in the process. Its range is a 3x3 area by your side, so the range isn't all that great, but it sweeps to take down a bunch of people, and some max damage is ludicrous for an AoE. This chance is beyond reality and lets you sync up with your allies for a team attack, adding all of their synergy to it too. This better wipe out what you were targeting, because you'll all be in for a world of hurt with no synergy. The anchor drop kick is, of course, our Inazuma kick. It does mass damage, doing an extra 3 damage for each quad and applying stuck. But this isn't good enough. Momentum transfer lets us amp it up to a super Inazuma kick. If you boosted at any point in this phase, you can add extra dice for each boost taken, up to a maximum of 6. Even without amplifying the dice, we can potentially be rolling 14 dice. Anything short of a boss is either gonna have their shields obliterated or just straight up be gone. Our option part gives us Cross Strike, completely bypass enemy shields and deal direct shock damage to a single target adjacent to you, applying charge and doing extra damage for each quad. Our Buster Collider is meant to unmake a single troublesome foe, but as an alternate, you can destroy multiple enemies all around you with the Palm Spin, our Double Buster Collider. This still deals direct damage, but doesn't apply an effect or deal extra damage on quads. Still, direct damage to 2 or even more people is huge. Fighting Spirit is a pretty simple self-buff, increasing your shields on hits and synergy on triples. If the enemy realizes that you are a problem and tries to remove you, you can stop it with your Buster Shield. Reflecting Punch negates damage for each hit and bounces back direct damage on doubles. It also obviously negates whatever status effect would have rocked you. On top of the cool defensive stuff, the Maxim Gloves also gives us the Storm of Fist stratagem, burning everything in a ridiculous 5x5 area with our homing laser. If you have friends who are adjacent to that AoE, then you can use its Burning Red chance, adding either the torque or mobility stat value to the hits on this roll. If I'm reading this correctly, they don't add more dice, just straight up more damage equal to that stat. This can get silly if you've got the right teammates, but it only adds one ally's stats. Finally, our other arm is casually packing gosh darn nuclear missiles with the Nitro Blast. Applies burning and does damage in a 3x3 area anywhere in range 6. So similar radius to your Buster Beam, but much greater range. It also does extra damage on triples because, like, you know, nukes. But let's say your enemy is tougher than that. And sure, your Buster Colliders can bust through them, but your allies are struggling. It's a good thing your alternate strat is the Dynamite Punch. It has a range of 3, does blaze damage, and permanently reduces the enemy's soak by 3. This is our Buster home run, tearing them apart with the power of baseball, I guess. Gunbuster is basically a sports anime as robots after all, so I won't knock it. With our stratagems out of the way, let's examine our handiwork. Our stats are great. We've got 8 torque, which can still max out with our final upgrade. Our durability is acceptable at 3. We're tough after all. The rest of them are garbage, so let's hope we don't have to hack into them. Our shield max is kinda low for a frontline fighter, at the minimum 8. Our soak is also just a little disappointing at 1. This is a pretty bad start until you realize your armor is 39! Coupled with ways to negate damage and quickly boost our shields, the Gunbuster is really hard to phase in any way and doesn't care about direct damage. Our speed is 8, which is pretty good for something this tanky. Moving on to the pros and cons. For pros, this thing is on a different level of power when it comes to punishment it can take, having almost double the armor of even tanky mechs. All our stratagems synergize nicely with each other too, with most of them applying effects, multiple blaze elements for detonations, and a mix of mass and shock for variety. Finally, while the Gunbuster excels at erasing the most people from the national census as possible, it's also got a couple neat 1v1 tricks with the Buster Shield, Home Run, and Inazuma Kick. For cons, our range is limited, with the Buster Missile being the only thing with solid range. Our strongest attacks are also serious synergy drains, meaning we can't exactly come out the gate swinging, and have to take time charging it up before the Buster Beam and Super Inazuma Kicks are ready. Finally, our lack of shields and soak means we're constantly taking chip damage that we can't recover. It's all well and good to be immune to grunts until the mandate of heaven sends half your health bar to the Shadow Realm. So there you have it, a machine meant to save all of humanity from impending extinction. Don't let the memories, hopes, and dreams of everyone that built it go to waste, and show them what it means to truly aim for the top.